Like, I remember rehearsing in her room, trying to get these dance moves right. Oh my God.
So
I'm glad.
to share?
No, sir.
Okay.
There are not. And I'm super grateful for that.
Destroy all evidence.
For her entertainment only. Oh my God, can you imagine?
Nice.
Hey everyone, welcome to A Life in Six Songs, our music interview podcast focused on those particular songs that have a strong connection in each of our lives. These are not necessarily your favorite songs, but rather those times music was seared into your memory, strongly connected to your experiences at the time. So many of the discussions around music are about who the better band is, or what genre is not as good as another. Those discussions really miss what is so fundamental about our interaction and enjoyment of music. This podcast is a judgment-free zone where we do not critique our taste in music, but are focused on understanding the unique role music has played in each guest's life. We're on an epic adventure to find the songs that are stuck to us like audible tattoos that tell us who we are and who we've been. Like the sonic DNA of our life, no two peoples are alike. These stories are the audible fingerprint we leave behind as our unique mixtape. Let's go have a listen together. I'm your host, David Reese. I'm joined by my co-host, my wife, Carolina, and my longtime childhood friend, Raza.
Hey.
Hi.
All right. Diving in. Here we go. All right. So, for our first few episodes here, we figured, lead by example. Let's not ask our guests to do anything we're not going to do ourselves. And so these first few episodes, we're going to be interviewing each other. So you all out there get to know us, get to get an idea of what the podcast is all about. And so our guest today is my wife, Carolina. She is an Ironman finisher. That's right. Well, maybe we'll get into some of that. Absolutely. She is also has been a professional photographer, an art teacher. Like so many of us, she's lived a number of lives, and so we're excited to get into it, getting to know each other, and yeah, let's go. So Carolina, to sort of warm us up and kick us off here, what role, when you think about your life, what role does music play in your life? How do you view music in your life?
A really, really strong connection, and not because I play anything. I don't play any instruments. I only sing alone in the shower, in the car. Like I'm not a musical person. But like music just stirs up a lot in me. I think as an only child, I, sat alone in my room a lot listening to music. And I don't know, it just has like this very visceral response. So I joke, I work with a colleague who's in like show choir and musical theater, and I'm a consultant now, and we do work with entertainment and stuff. And they're always, every time I go to New York, they're like, you need to see this show and this show and this show. And I'm like, I can't watch musicals. And they're like, blasphemy. Like, why? And I'm like, because they just make me cry. Like it's so when music is really strong and like people are singing and there's like a story, like it's overwhelming to me. So that gives you like an insight. Like I have a really strong connection in an interesting way because I'm not a musician.
That's interesting, though, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure one of the reasons why we're doing this is to connect our audience, right, who might not all be musicians. So, like, full disclosure, right? I mean, Dave and I, we are musicians. It's kind of in our blood and everything. But I think we're also obviously we appreciate music as well. And but I think the audience is going to appreciate, non-musicians and musicians kind of just talking about music, because I think everyone has a connection to it. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it gets at what the idea is behind the podcast, right? Is to get away from those discussions that people are just arguing about, who's the better band or something like that, because I think that that's not what it's necessarily about. Like, that discussion can be had, right? You can have and say who's the best drummer and who's this, and you can have your reasons and things, but if we only do that, we miss how music, even if we have different interests or different, paths, really connect us. Right. And so that's really what we're trying to do here is show why, the songs and things may be different for all of us. But the experience is similar around. So, yeah, great.
How
All right.
music makes us feel, right?
That's right. That's right.
100%. Like, think about a movie without a score.
Oh, wow.
Or,
Yeah.
like, how empty would that be, right? It really, like, grounds stories and, just, like, stirs up all the feels.
That's a really, like, epic analogy. I'm trying to think of those, like those Christopher Nolan movies, right? I mean, they're huge, they're expansive, and there's, obviously so much going on, so in depth. But then he almost always has Hans Zimmer provide the soundtrack and the score, and that just, like, it takes it to just a whole other level. So I'm just, as you said that, I'm thinking, okay, well, what if Hans Zimmer, what if it was silent? There was no soundtrack. It just, it wouldn't hit right.
Yeah. And I mean, when I think about our generation, like, I won't age us, but, like, we grew up in the time of the like Breakfast Club and all I'll think about, like, Footloose without those, like, music montages of him learning to dance, or Rocky without, remember the when he's training in Russia and, like, the songs that go with it, or when he's running up the steps, like, without music, it's just some dude huffing and puffing up the stairs in Philly, right? Like,
yeah, there's that great clip out there. It's of the ending scene of Star Wars when Chewbacca, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker are walking in to get their medals from Princess Leia. And so it's this huge, like you said, kind of Christopher Nolan, like this expansive scene. And there's this just, epic music playing, but the clip cuts the music out. And so you just see the clip. And they're just walking in, and it's silent. Yeah. And then there's a few things where, like, Chewbacca, like, yells, and, like, R2-D2 beeps, and that's all you, like, hear. And it's like, oh yeah,
it just flops without it.
It just flops. It's just like weird.
Yeah. That was John Williams. John Williams in the house.
Yeah. I feel like between the two of them, it's like 87% of musical scores. It's like, it's always Hans Zimmer, and you're like, really, again? John Williams, really?
Yeah.
And for a long time, like, whenever I see that name, I'm like, he's still around? Like, how much longer? But still, like, epic scores.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive in and get talking about the score to your life.
Oh,
right?
My God.
Because it's the same way as what we're getting at, right? If we didn't have music in our lives, it would be like those scenes that are epic because the music's there. But if it wasn't, it wouldn't be as epic. And so, that's a really good analogy for what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to, see what the score of our lives were. And of course, it's a life in 6 songs, but no life can be defined by only 6 songs. So this is always, it's an approximation, pulling out kind of those key points. And so,
although we're not keeping score, right?
No.
No.
We're discussing our score, but not keeping score.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Prepare yourselves for really, really bad dad jokes.
For dad jokes, I'm outnumbered, so I'm bracing myself.
Absolutely. All right, so let's dive in. So, the first song we're going to discuss is, what is your earliest music memory?
I had to think like just first memories really of so I was born in Bogota, Colombia, and we immigrated to the United States when I was like 4-ish. Um, and I'm trying to remember like those first memories of American culture. And the memory that most sticks out, I think MTV was in its infancy. And I have a really stark memory of like sitting crisscross on the floor in my family room in front of like this giant television that looked like a cabinet at the time, watching Michael Jackson's Billie Jean video.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick listen. This is probably a song I'm sure everyone is singing in their head already, but let's play it, and so we can get everybody on the same page. Nice. So hearing it now, again, what's going through your mind? What do you tell us a little bit more about that moment, that time in your life?
Yeah, hearing it again, I'm like back sitting on my, family's family room floor. I think, I had to look back at what year it came out. Like that's the earliest memory, right? And then I had to be like, when was that? I think we had just moved to the US. I don't even know that I spoke English yet. And so, my mom jokes that like Sesame Street taught me English, but I think so did just pop culture and music videos, right? Because not only are you like singing and jamming and rocking out, but stuff like I have that vivid memory of him like walking on those tiles and the tiles would light up. And wasn't there like a tiger in it too? For a hot second.
Yeah. And it disappeared, I want to say, in the video.
A little kid, right? And you start to like move past cartoons and you're like watching other stuff and you're like, what is this melting my brain? This is amazing. Yeah. It takes you right back.
I remember watching that video too, as a kid. Also, somewhat like of an immigrant story with me, but I remember moving to America and then realizing, and actually looking for tiles that light up because I saw them in the Michael Jackson video, and always being disappointed that where are those tiles? It's plain old concrete.
I think something else that comes to mind with that is, it's like my family room. So like my family's all like wandering around in the background, my grandparents, mom, uncles, aunts, that kind of thing. And, primarily they'd listen to Latin music coming from Colombia. My mom was big into disco and stuff like that. My uncle was big into like rock and AC/DC and stuff like that. But like the whole family was like, we like Michael Jackson, because my grandma would sometimes be like, what are you listening to? What is that? But everyone was like, this is good, so like bobbing heads as they're walking around the house.
Yeah, I think that was such a important thing about that time MTV. Like MTV was new for all of us, right? Not just us as younger kids, but our parents and everything else. And so it was really that thing. Like everybody was into Michael Jackson, right? It was this thing. Like you knew about it, even if you weren't, parents weren't rocking out to it every day and stuff like that. It's like everybody knew. And it's like that moment of, we talked about the music video with the light up tiles and things, but there's that moment where he performs Billie Jean. I think it was the Grammys, and he does the moonwalk for the first time. And I remember, just like you said, sitting there watching it, just going, what in the world? This is insane. This is amazing.
Right. He was already cool and now he's defying gravity. Like who walks backwards that way? What is that? Yeah. It's like blows your mind at that age.
Yeah, totally. In that you mentioned your mom being into disco. And so, for our next question, our next song, in your life here, what is a song that that reminds you of your parents?
I couldn't remember the name actually. I had to like go back and be like popular disco songs of the late 70s, early 80s. And this came up and I was like hearing little samples of every song. And the moment Anita Ward's Ring My Bell came up, I was like, that's it. That's it. That's my childhood. Because when you're a kid pre
We'll get a little listen here.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of music nerddom coming your way. I never realized that she, whoever the backing band was, they're actually using like the xylophone or whatever bell. It's a bell sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes that song like so distinct. And when you're a kid, like you're pre iPhones, iPad, you were just listening to whatever your parents listened to. Like that's what you were stuck listening to in the car. And I have a really, really young mom. She had me as a teenager. And so she was like in these early 20s clubbing, in South Florida kind of thing. And she had all the clubs she went to were like playing disco at the time. And she had all these mix tapes in the car of the DJs that would play at those clubs that night. So I had like countless Jimmy's Mix volume 1 to 85 or whatever. And so she was always playing those tapes. And this song was like always a part of it.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. When you hear that song, now again, after having to, look it up and find out who it was and stuff, how do you feel about it? What is it? Does it give you sort of happy memories about it? Cause it can be either way. It's either like, oh, this reminds me of my parents. And it was one of my like, oh man, this set me on my path and I just love that song. Or it can be like, this makes me think of my parents and
Right. No, it's definitely good memories. And it's the memories in that way where so often your parents are just like your parents and you don't see them as like the individual humans that they are, because they're like telling you what to do and they're moving you from one place to the other, they're parenting. But this song immediately puts me in the car. And I just have memories of like being little and like looking over and watching her just dance to it while she was driving. She would like do this little thing with her hand all the time. And just being like, wow, like she's cool. When you see your parents in their element, like not self-conscious, just being themselves outside of parenting. That's the memory I have of just watching her, really a woman in her early 20s, just being young and having a good time.
Yeah, I think music can be that way where people let loose, right?
Yeah.
They loosen up a little bit, they sing along, they dance, they whatever. And so, yeah, it's a way to see them as fellow human beings rather than just this disciplinarian or whatever it might be. So yeah, thanks for that.
What do you guys think about, I mean, we're all parents, right? What do you guys think about, kids, and obviously the kids are in a different generation, different age group. What do you guys think about kids listening? They obviously have their own taste in music, but then they're also, I think their earliest memories, like I think, Caroline, like you were saying, they're exposed to music just based on what the parents have kind of playing around the house. So, but as they grow up, obviously, they start listening to things that are, from their generation that their friends maybe introduced them to and things like that. So how do you guys feel about, sort of, you can't force your kids to listen to your music, but I'm definitely guilty of saying, oh, well, when I was 15, this was the greatest thing that ever came around, whether it was, I don't know, Tool or Metallica or whatever. And I would tell my kids, and my kids would say, well, yeah, that's great, but we're listening to, whatever the current thing is. And then obviously we get into the whole sort of comparing and contrasting, which, rightly or wrongly it happens. But I don't know, how do you guys navigate that? Because, I mean, Carolina, like you said, your parents, you heard, disco growing up and a bunch of other stuff. as what your parents were listening to, but then you also it made some sort of an impression on you as well. So yeah, how do you navigate all that?
I think I didn't try really hard to push her towards any music, or we kind of let her listen to whatever she wanted at the time, and we would listen to our things, but they felt more like contemporary to the year she was born. But what I find interesting about that question is the folks that are creating TV shows and content that she's growing up with are probably our age, and or like using throwbacks to the 90s and things like that. So when she watched Glee and they were covering like all songs that we grew up listening to, and then I would like hear her singing it around their house, or it would come on the radio, or I would have it on and she would know the words, and I'm like, how on earth do you know that song? And it was always like Glee.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't help but like I don't know, like I would nerd out a little bit because she would be like, oh, it's from Glee. And I was like, no. It's Glee's cover of so-and-so. And then I would play it. Like, you need to listen to the original. So that's yeah, funny. I remember we did some like music education-y stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, stuff like social media and TikTok is really big on that, for whatever reason. So I know that my kids, as far as getting exposed to different trends on TikTok, and then you realize whatever's trending is something that like I'm familiar with. I know there was a big thing about like Vanilla Ice a few years ago, Ice Ice Baby, and someone was doing a TikTok on that, and they brought the song to the house, and my wife was like, okay, no, this is how the words go, and she spontaneously all the lyrics to the Ice Ice Baby, and my kids are like, what, how do you know that song? We're like, dude, this is how we grew up. South Florida, early 90s. This is us. It's like, oh yeah, okay. So
100%. Or even songs that are explicit today, like just, and she'll play it or whatever. And I remember in like earlier days when she was getting exposed to some of that music, she'd kind of look over like, did you hear that? Did you hear what they said? And David and I would always be like, girl, like, it's fine. You should hear the music like we grew up listening to. So yeah.
It's almost like they get a pass because it's music that we're okay with. But if it's like something that's current that I know nothing about, but someone drops like an F-bomb, and I'm like, what are you listening to? It's like, Dad, when Axl Rose was cursing in the other song, I'm like, but that's GNR.
That's different. It's different.
It's different. It's classic.
Different. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that question, of we started it with, talking about Carolina's mom and her music, and then Raza, you brought it back to like us and our kids, and I find it so interesting in that way. I mean, this is beyond music with kids, I think, in a lot of ways, but I think there's an inverse relationship between you telling your child this is really cool, you should check it out, and their interest in it, right? So the more excited you are, it depends on the age, obviously, but like it's this sort of resistance, because I think for like we're doing right now, music is so personal for us in ways that like if I listen to this solely because my dad told me it's got some there's resistance to it in ways. And so, yeah, like Carolina said, I think it's, what we've always tried is just exposure without like pressure. And so, yeah. I also think it's a little bit different now, going back to, the Michael Jackson story. I feel like when in the 80s there wasn't the internet, there wasn't these things. And so there was limited spaces where you can get access to music, which sort of brought us all together, right? The only thing was MTV. And so everybody was watching the Grammys and the moonwalk and stuff like that. Whereas now nobody's tied to really any of that, right? You can, have your entirely own playlist that's not, shared with almost anybody else. And so I think it's potentially one of the struggles going forward as technology increases.
Well, but to that point, So, and I'm just thinking about this as you said that. I remember, I think all of us, we're basically in the same age group. So I think our exposure to like Michael Jackson was the same thing. And I remember like my parents were as excited about this guy, from America walking across, or sliding across, during the Grammy performances, right? As I was. It was like a collective. It was a really cool, like shared experience. And now I'm thinking that, like, on TikTok, for example, right? You have kids that do their little dances, and then they pull in their parents, and then there's like this mom daughter, dad daughter, dad son, mom, that type of thing happening as well. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I think that's one way that we're still doing this like generational exposing each other to music and then kind of interacting with it, but it's the same type of thing. It's just in a different format now, which is kind of cool as well.
Yeah.
During early days of the pandemic, I remember Bella trying to teach me some of those TikTok dances. Like we got to pass the time and entertain ourselves. Like we're home, all the things. And like, I remember rehearsing in her room, trying to get these dance moves right. Oh my God.
So are there clips to share?
No, sir.
Okay.
There are not. And I'm super grateful for that.
Destroy all evidence.
For her entertainment only. Oh my God. Could you imagine?
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Raza, for your optimism in balancing out my pessimism about technology. So,
hey,
so to everybody out there, do the TikTok videos with your kids. It's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This Gatorade bottle is half full. Okay.
Awesome.
Always positive.
Let's move along. Our third song in your life. This is one of my favorite questions. I think we ask in this because it's music has such a power for this, and so what was a song, Carolina, that opened you to an entirely new perspective?
So, often we think of our lives like in phases, like early childhood, adolescence, college, or post high school, that kind of thing. And so I was thinking back to, I think maybe it was late elementary or even middle school. This family moved in next door. They were from New Jersey. They're Peruvian, but from New Jersey. And back then, so this is early 90s, I would say, for music to get from like New York City, New Jersey area down all the way to Fort Lauderdale, Miami, like a DJ would have to pick it up and play it on the radio, right? We didn't stream things. So we were sort of beholden to either we traveled up there and heard it, or somehow the music made it down by some DJs. So anyway, my neighbors move in, and there was a girl named Priscilla who was my age, and then she had like wickedly cool older sister named Blanca, right? She was like 17 or something like that, and like the coolest thing, right? And all I remember was going over to their house to visit, and she was blasting. It was either Wu-Tang Clan or Mary J. Blige from her room, and I was like, "What is this?" Like, I was just blown away. Hip hop was a thing. Like, it was already on my radar, but like it was something about Method Man's voice, the soul behind Mary J. Blige's music that was just so rich. So when I was thinking about that memory, because those are the two artists that specifically stand out that she was just like listening to on tape over and over and over. And then I remember getting Mary J. Blige's What's the 411 tape. I picked a song where they collaborate together because that was equally as like mind blowing.
Yeah, let's take a listen.
For you anytime you need me. For real, girl, it's me in your world. Believe me, nothing make a man feel better than a woman. Queen with a crown that be down for whatever.
Nice. I gotta say, this one, in getting this ready for the podcast, it was tough to get it to a 30-second clip that sort of captured the essence of the song,
Yeah.
because it's them together, so they sort of alternate verses and things. But I'm glad you mentioned Method Man's voice, and we had a clip in there that had it. So, yeah, when you hear it now, what do you think?
It's just so good. Like, it's just so good. Yeah, I feel like an early teenager. I listened to a lot of hip hop in high school, and I think this opened that world for me. It was stuff I hadn't heard, um, and so I'm like transported to that time. I think we started with like my early life where you're like listening to what's on TV or listening to what your parents are listening to, and like this music started to like carve my own interest and like my own preferences for music, because no one in my family was listening to hip hop at all. Then I just like fell down the rabbit hole for a ton of years listening to this stuff. It's so good. Like, even still, that song just still sounds so good.
Well, I have a question. Why do you think that song in particular, like what about that song just resonates? I mean, it's one of the most popular. Like when I think of Method Man, I mean, I think of some Wu-Tang stuff, and then this particular song.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not like I appreciate hip hop, but that's not like my background. And we can get to that another time. But yeah, but this particular song, why do you think it resonates, or even for you?
I don't know that I like have the musical terminology to like state why it like hit home so much, but I think it was a different duet than what I had ever heard. It's a song about love and their relationship and how they feel about each other, right? But not in this like lovey-dovey ballad sort of way. It just felt like raw and like the melody of it is so smooth to me, and both of their voices just like mesh so well. She's got this just beautiful voice, and he's got like somewhat of a rasp in his voice, and it's like rough. Like all those pieces come together to just make it sound really great.
No, that's exactly right. I was trying to sort of, that was a leading question.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, because that's, at least for me, again, I don't know the like the super detailed stuff, but it's that mix of melody, but then also like really sort of, authentic, like hardcore, two really extreme voices, extreme melody, but also extreme like hardcore. And it's a great like mixing of both. I think that's why it resonates, because I think anyone can appreciate it. You can go, oh man, like the melody is great, but then you can also go, look, the rhymes. I mean, that's that's excellent too.
Yeah, it's not as slow as a ballad, but it's not as fast as hip hop usually is, and I don't know if it's like the base of it, but it just plays like so smooth. Like I don't think you can help but like kind of bounce your head to it as you're listening to it. Yeah
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking, is as you were having that conversation just now, of like, for me it's just like when it kicks on, it's just like you're just bobbing your head. It's just got that feel, and it's I think it's also one of these things that the idea behind these conversations we're having is how chance it was, right? If you have a different neighbor move in,
yes,
we could be talking about a completely different song here.
Yes.
And so I music feels so personal, right? It's this thing of like, oh, this is me. And if you don't, you just don't get it, whatever it is, especially in those teen years. But it really is a community thing, right? Because we don't live in isolation, right? We are at the, even now with streaming, right? Depending on who you follow on social media and whatnot is going to, put different things out there. And so I just think it's so like just interesting, kind of that butterfly effect, right? The whole, butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the the planet and can cause a hurricane or whatever. It's like these little chance meetings, and it makes this like you said, Carolina, like this song just was like, whoa, and then boom, you were into hip hop for the next, few years, really, really heavily and
Forever.
stuff. And so,
Yeah. And
yeah,
I love how you said like about, I had another neighbor moved in. Actually, the neighbors behind us that I played with their daughters, like when we were little, her parents had a band. Like they had businesses, but they converted their garage into like a jam space, and dad played drums and mom sang, but it was more like rock country kind of stuff. And I would listen, but I was like, all right. But then like, and it's also like the older sister thing. You're like, look up to, and I, like blew my mind. I was like, what is this?
yeah. The power of the older sibling.
The power of the older teenager in the neighborhood that everyone's like, you're so cool.
Ooh.
So yeah, probably not to Priscilla because it was her older sister, but huge thanks to
right.
Blanca. I don't remember your last name, who introduced me to Wu-Tang Clan and Mary J. Blige.
So what was the so it sounded like this song was kind of like a gateway to like the world of hip hop just opened up, right?
Yeah.
So what was like the next, maybe, next couple of bands or next couple of groups that that led, from here?
In terms of hip hop?
Yeah.
Oh God.
So did like the floodgates open, or was just like, okay, one band and you were really into them, and then some other band and then you were really into them?
Yeah. Oh God, I don't really remember off the top of my head, but what I will say is like it wasn't just hip hop, but also R&B. So like maybe instead of I remember in high school, like you have the radio stations that you listen to more often than not. I was more listening to like 99 Jams, which was the hip hop R&B station in South Florida at the time, and like Hot 105, which was more R&B than like Power 96, which was more like, how would you describe Power 96? South Florida pop,
booty
party,
music,
booty. That was good. Like that had its place, obviously, parties and weekends and clubbing. But like,
if you know, you know. With that one,
just a lot more of like those radio stations, because that was a newer sound that I wanted to hear more of.
Nice. Yeah, and so speaking of songs that sort of have this connection, right? When you hear this song, you think of your neighbor and think of where you are in life, and sort of it can be these markers that you can go back to. What's a song that for you is really intimately connected to some other activity? Like, a song that's tied to a certain book, or it's tied to a certain location or a trip.
So sort of like chronologically, this just works. But as I became a teenager, I was starting to spend more time flying back to Colombia and spending summers and Christmases. Like pretty much as I got to the age where like you start to get in trouble when you don't have something to do when you're out of school. Like my mom was like, you're on a plane, like you're out of here. Right. And I would spend summers and Christmases and spring breaks, like whatever, with my cousins down in a town just outside of Cali, Colombia. And I just really then got more embraced in Latin music and my Latin roots, because we were always going like dancing and clubbing. And so the song you'll play now, like instantly takes me back to just clubbing and dancing with them till wee hours of the morning.
All right, let's all go back and club. Here we go.
Llorarás y llorarás sin alguien que te consuele. Así te darás de cuenta que si te engañan duele. Fuirás como yo.
All right. So hearing it again now, not at a club in Colombia, what are you feeling? What are you thinking?
First off, just like noting how different this song is than all of the other songs we've talked about. Like threw you all a curveball. But I think that's kind of indicative of my life. Like probably why I've had like 7 careers, and like I think I just like to try new things, and I maybe not that I get bored, but like I'm easily like drawn to something new. Um and so one that like seems to stand out to me, like wow, this was really different from like everything I just walked you all through. But listening to it now, like I'm transported to what felt like a very carefree time in my life, summers with family, um summer vacations and trips down there. You're like brief summer loves that you don't want to leave at the end of the summer, like. And Latin music, particularly salsa, which this is, you dance it as a couple. It's not it's not a solo dance situation. So and you're a teenager, so you're like hormonal, and you're like dancing really close to this person, and like just like lots of teenage feels, I think. The other thing that's super interesting about this song to me, and Latin music in general, is like this song came out in the 70s, but it was like raging in clubs still in the 90s. Like salsa can be very timeless in that way, tied to like the dancing style and stuff like that. And classic songs are still super popular. So yeah, I love this song.
Yeah. I love the horns in it. I mean, to me, like a horn section is just amazing. I mean, it's, I think why I think ska is such great music, because it's like they just bring the horns in, and it's just like when you hear the horns, it's just like, it's one of those moments like we said, like the sort of power of music and things like that to elicit emotion sort of in this direct way, like instantaneously. I just have these feels. It's so great.
That's so funny. I never thought about the horns being like a standout thing, and like the comparison to ska music. And I mean, you're right. It's, it just adds a whole other like layer. It's really cool. Whenever I hear salsa music, I cannot follow the beat at all. I can kind of, follow along to merengue a little bit, but salsa was always like, nope. There's too many twists and twirls and can't do it. But it reminds me of, I don't know if you guys ever saw that John Leguizamo special. So I think his entrance music to the second part of his show was he's playing like salsa music. Yeah. And he says something to the effect of, he's like engaging with the audience and sort of making his way back down to the stage, and he's like dancing along and like pulling some people from the audience, kind of dancing with him, doing the twirls and stuff, and then going back up. And he for the first time explained what the beat does. Well, it's like da 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 da. And that was the first time that I realized, it does make sense. It's not just random twirls. So anyway, but this song reminds me of that.
Yeah, I would say Latin music, there's cumbia and merengue and salsa and bachata, like, but the way the dancing intertwines with the music, like it's so on the beat to how the specific style of dance goes that you almost feel like part of the music. In a way that dancing to maybe like pop or other things doesn't feel that way. And then the bands of like Latin music. One of my really good childhood friends, who I'm hoping to have on, that I went to college with, Jay, his cousins play in a Latin band, La Excelencia. David and I went and saw them in New York City. And yeah, it's just like the percussion is so amazing. The horns, there's like the singing, like it's like not quite an orchestra, but it was a large band of all kinds of different instruments.
Huge.
The cowbell, just all of it, right? Yeah. And so, it's so good.
No, I mean, but you're right. I think that the dancing is like a really like integral part of the music. Like at least again for me, I'm not I'm not part of the culture, but I've been around it long enough to like, whenever I hear, Latin music, it's like, okay, you just imagine like a whole, couples dancing together and everyone knows exactly what they're doing. And I'm always thinking, how is that possible?
It's so true, because we would go to clubs and a stranger would ask you to dance, right? And so, but your both of your bodies have to blend. Like if my foot goes forward, his foot has to go back. Like, and there's this unspoken way that you just know how all of it works. If he starts to like lift a hand, you're about to get turned. And it has to go with the music. And because if somebody does not dance well, it's like it's like flopping, like it's just terrible. It just goes horribly wrong, right? But then when two people do mesh and blend that way, it's like magical. It is such a good time.
Yeah, it is magical. Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I think of it. Just like, just the music and the horns and everything. Yeah. It's just this, it just feels like such a like party, right?
Yeah.
This thing of like, we are all here, whether it's at this club, at this, party at a house or something like that. The salsa music and the Latin music, it's just like, we are here to have fun and be passionate about it and go. And it's just so refreshing.
Yeah, you're like an extension of the band. They're all dancing as they're playing. So yeah, it's just a giant party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, the horn section, because they're like, they'll hit it and then they're like, yeah.
Right. And so you can see how these things last until the morning, right? My best friend growing up was Venezuelan, and we would have parties at our house all the time. And like, it was breakfast at the end. Like this goes until,
6 a.m. No.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Oh, man.
Awesome.
Very
all right.
cool.
So, yeah. Moving along. So, we've been talking about sort of early memories, middle school, high school. Now we're, moving somewhat chronologically. And so, we've talked about a lot of positive connections to music, right? Mm-hmm. These like joyful things, and this is amazing, and the dancing and the moonwalking. But, music also has that ability to be there when we are struggling, right? And so, Caroline, what's a song that you struggle to listen to, or that you even may need to, turn off because of the difficult memories it brings up, or, the challenges?
I think this probably resonates for a lot of people. You might have songs that like you had with a partner and then you split up, like, songs that remind you of a challenging time. Before David and I met, I was married previously. And my husband ended up dying of cancer. I was like 29 when he died. So, and it was a long, drawn out illness. Like he had it when we were engaged, and then into remission. We went on to have our daughter. And then he got sick again, really, really, really sick, and did not survive that bout. But it required, at this point, I was a mom. And so I was like, taking her to daycare and then rushing to the hospital like every day. And then like at night coming home. And at the time, Alicia Keys, No One was popular on the radio. And you know how like the radio is particularly like the, your Y100s and stuff, like it's playing like every fifth song. And so this song was constantly on. I could not maybe, and the drive to the hospital, FYI, was like 7 minutes. And it was like almost impossible to go from my apartment to the hospital without hearing it on the radio. And so it's still hard today, because the lyrics too, just like given the circumstances.
Yeah. All right, let's take a listen. What are you feeling?
Damn
What are you
it.
thinking? I think that
song.
says it better than any words you could say, right? I mean, there it is. It's yeah, the power of the music, even now.
Instant. I
Yeah.
don't think I'll ever think of that song in the same way. I've always thought of it as as a like uplifting and powerful, but and it's so funny how it has the exact opposite. You can interpret it completely in the opposite way as well. And yeah, man.
Yeah, depending just what is going on in your life. Like music can just trigger things, right? So I think you asked me with other songs like what memory comes up when I hear it now,
Mm-hmm.
And I have this memory of at first I would listen and I would sing, and then as just things got harder, I have a memory of like it was like late at night and I was parked in the parking garage of the hospital, and I was like belting it out at the top of my lungs, but also just like sobbing. And then I drove home. And then I think probably after that, I just couldn't listen to it anymore. So then when it would come on, I would just change the station because it just got like too hard. And then after it died, it was still popular. And I was like, Alicia Keys, leave me alone. Like, I just can't anymore. You're really great. You need to go away.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not always great memories, but like, yeah, like Visceral still. I mean, he's been gone. He died in 2007. And like, I still tear up to hear it.
That's the thing about songs too. Like they're like a bookmark, and anytime you hear, especially again something that's tied to a memory, that's that significant, it'll always, I think, instantly, the rest of your life, that anytime you hear that song, unfortunately,
damn song,
yeah. and it's you'll probably transported right back to 2007 or before, and it's in an instant like that. Yeah.
And I think this is such a great example too of how music elicits those emotions like immediately, right? You don't listen to it and think. It's just before you even have a ability to kind of process it, you've already got the emotion coming, right? It's this just visceral, like right in there, like someone's almost like electrocuting you, right? You jump before you know what happened. And so yeah, it's just again that power of it.
You know what memory that brings up? So our daughter's 17 now, but when she was little, she used to have a really visceral response to music in movies. Like she'd be watching a movie, and if the music got like ominous, she knew shit was going to hit the fan and like something bad was going to happen. And like nothing had happened on screen yet, but literally just the shift in tone of music, and she would go like this and like start to hide. It's like that. That's what that's reminding me of. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think you've passed down that gene of music teleportation to her.
I guess so.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to of at the beginning of the interview, Carolina, you mentioned that you're not a musician. Raza and I both most of our, middle and high school life was spent music and since, in different times. But I think this particular song and this experience shows how we don't need the musical knowledge of like, what key is this in? What's the tempo? What's the, whatever, right, to have the feeling. Right. And I think it just gets at that, music is something so fundamental for us as humans, right? In a lot of ways, because it's able to tap into that thing where you don't need to think about it. It just happens, right? You get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I know it when I hear it. Like when you were saying, sometimes you don't even need to hear the lyrics or whatever, just a little bit. And I was like, yeah, like what the hell is it? The piano, the like beat, like I couldn't even describe it, but I just know when the song starts before she said anything, I know exactly what song it is. Then I need to change the station.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the whole universal aspect of music, right? Is that you don't have to know, is it in 4/4 or 9/13 or whatever, key time signature is C flat or A minor. It's like no. It makes me feel X, X amount of things from what 15, 17 years ago. I think that part is universal. That part is what other people can relate to, and that's I think music does that.
Yeah.
Alicia Keys' voice does that. It's just there.
Yeah, and I think talking about that universal perspective, I shared that I would go to Latin America a lot, as a kid, and I would listen to what my cousins were listening to, and a lot of it was actually American music, but they had no idea what the lyrics were. Like they didn't speak English, but we're just like rocking out to, all kinds of different like American songs. And I always found that really interesting that they would enjoy it as much as they did without knowing the words, without understanding.
Yeah.
But I think it is about like melody and beat, and like you just know it feels good for you when you hear it without being able to explain what it is.
Well, from like the heavy metal perspective, apparently, metal is huge in Latin America, right? And it's like all the metal bands from the States and from Europe, they have to tour Latin America, and they'll say time and again, these guys, I don't think that they know, what the hell it is that we're talking about in the lyrics, but they are passionate and rocking out and selling out these huge, arenas and stadiums. Yeah. And it's all metal. It's which I love, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think I am someone who is, I'll use the word guilty, but of not always paying as much attention to the lyrics, right? Even to bands I like love, right? Because and this is maybe a little bit of that musician. As a drummer, boom, what's the drums doing? I'm trying to learn the drums. And then from there, I'm like, ooh, what's the bass doing? And then it kind of goes to the other things. But like what the person is saying is sort of not the first thing that jumps to my mind. As I've gotten older, I've gone back to a lot of the music that I was, into in the past and paid more attention to the lyrics. And it's like, oh wow. But yeah, I think those emotions and feelings you get, you don't necessarily have to understand the lyrics to get it, for sure.
Yeah. I was the opposite. I was like, if the lyrics are gibberish, and I'm not interested, especially like heavy metal. That's how that was my metal filter. It's like Satan and this, no, not interested. Goodbye. Talk to me about, love and, political stuff. Yeah, that resonates,
Yeah.
So it's like, give me some Rage Against the Machine. Give me some, Sepultura.
I was just gonna say a example that doesn't fall into that is Rage Against the Machine, right? Because the words are so much of it, right? And
yeah. I mean, without Zach, it's like just prophets of rage. It's not Rage Against the Machines.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back on track. We're not derailing, but we are definitely going down an aside and moving away. All right. So, that definitely, gets at, and I'm sure everyone listening and watching, they've got their song in their mind that they know does that. Right. And so, Carolina, thank you for, sharing that. While the specifics may be different for everybody's got that song there. So for our last song, in your life, what's a song that you associate with a weighty transition in your life?
I mean, super weighty is the transition from being married to then being a widow and a single mom, right? Like my life changed pretty instantly overnight. And my life changed in a ton of ways. So like, it wasn't just the loss of a spouse, but at 29, the realization that like I could, he was 33 when he died, right? So I could die young. Um, and I got like this like huge kind of like you only live once feeling, lots of YOLO. And so I was going back to music that just felt really good and that I wanted to listen to. And so I'll tell you how I discovered this band and this song, but I was binging a lot of Death Cab for Cutie for a while.
Let's take a listen.
I wish we could open our eyes to see in all directions at the same time. Oh, what a beautiful view. If you were never aware of what was around you, and it is true what you said.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Yeah, so that was Death Cab for Cutie's Marching Bands of Manhattan. So entering this new sort of transition in my life, I was kind of exploring all kinds of things. I had studied abroad in England and really, really loved British radio. Like I was listening to Virgin Radio, specifically the radio station over there at the time. And I just loved all of it. I came back and I was trying to stream it here in the United States. Virgin was streaming to the US via internet for a while. So I was listening to that. And so I started to like amass bands, and then I was using Pandora to listen to them. And Pandora was really great in that, you know, the algorithm of it was like, well, if you like this, let me suggest this, right? So that's how I found Death Cab for Cutie and Keen and the Killers and like all of this other sort of alternative type music that I just fell in love with. And so I think there was a big like alternative music switch. Man, I went from like hip hop to Latin to like, whoo, it's been a ride. But yeah, I've been like really in love with alternative music ever since. It's just kind of spoken to me. And so I was binging this song and their music in general for a long time.
I know you. Obviously, we've been married now for a number of years and, you know, been together since 2008. So yeah. What is that, 15 years? Wow. I'm so glad you picked this song and this band specifically, because when I hear Death Cab for Cutie, I automatically connect it with you. Like it is you. Because I before we met, I really didn't listen to as much of this kind of style of music. And it like, I got it, right? When I listen to it, I'm like, I can see how you specifically are connecting with this. And I just also think of the joke we always had, because anytime you had the station on and it was playing Keen and all these other bands, I would always joke and be like, is this Death Cab for Cutie? Is this Death Cab for Cutie? That was my joke for everything. Any music that I didn't, know the band necessarily, that's what I would say.
Yeah. I have to say, so yes, part of that transition was moving on and meeting you. And I super appreciate that while you have very specific music tastes, right? Your love of Rush and metal and all that stuff. Like whenever I had music playing, you never ever said like, yeah, I don't want to hear that, or that sucks, or like, I was always like, is this okay? And you were like, yeah, play it. Like, and like, you've listened. a lot more than I've listened to your metal. Like I'm like, hey, this makes me feel a little murdery, and can we shut it off? But you, so it hasn't always been as equal. But you've always listened to whatever I was listening to, like happily, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, nice. I think I've always, like I said, that's the motivation behind doing this podcast, is that I always felt like, I was hesitant to share with people what bands I liked, because normally the conversation was always just, well, then let me tell you why that band isn't as good as the band that I like. And I'm like, I don't want to have that conversation. Right. I just, what's, so what, like it's not what music does. Right. And so I think that's what you're getting at, in the sense of like, I loved hearing the music that connected to you, because it wasn't just the music. And I'm like, well, that drummer's not as good as Neil Peart or something like that. Like, no, like who cares? Right. I felt like I was getting to know you through the music, right? I was seeing something of you in it. So now all we have to do is have you see some of me in some of the metal, and,
minus the murder, right?
Minus the murder. Yeah.
Your interview's coming.
That's right. We won't start you off with like Cannibal Corpse or Dying Fetus or something like that.
Yes.
Ease you in.
And this is where I'm grateful for Raza in your life, because you can share that with him.
Yes, yeah. Happy to help with that. Quick question. So I remember Death Cab in passing, and to me, all the bands you mentioned, Death Cab, Keen, not the Killers. I feel like the Killers they were slightly heavier, so I was just like, okay, I really like these guys. And then from there it goes into like the Muse type territory. But like
Snow Patrol.
Just
the slow. Yeah.
But Death Cab, Keen, and then I always think of Dashboard, Confessional.
Yes.
And
so,
but to me, it's like a big lump of the same stuff. So it's funny, Dave, like when you said, oh, is this Death Cab? Is that Death Cab? It's like, yes, I thought of it almost the same way, because you could point to any of those bands and I could say, is that Dashboard? Because it sounds like the same shit.
Yeah.
In the same way, all genres, if you're not into it, sound that way, right?
Yeah.
People talk about metal, like it's all the same. People talk about
there's a distinct
EDM
difference
or
between
techno and stuff, But if you know it, right?
Yeah.
You can tell the differences.
Cannibal Corpse and Obituary, two completely different things.
Well,
let's get that right.
I relate it to I don't know, like how you develop a palate for certain food, or you learn like the nuances of wine, or like whatever it is. Like I just don't, with metal, like let's say I don't feel like I have the palate for it. I'm not able to distinguish the differences or like appreciate it. Yeah. Like I know there's a ton there. I don't get it. Like I don't, and so I can see with this kind of music, like the same thing. And to be honest, like usually whenever I talk about music with somebody and they're like, oh, what kind of bands I always get, who? Like, I don't know who that is.
It's funny you mentioned wine, because I'm like the same way. It's like, okay, people go, well, try this red, try this pink, try this. It's just like, no. Like, I don't like what? I don't get it.
Right.
What?
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure it's something you could learn, and the more you're exposed to, and that stuff. I think I just haven't
go
been.
Ding, 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 and you swirl it around. Look, this one has the bubbles. Can I get a margarita, please?
Yeah.
Call it a day.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great example too for music in that way, because if you've got a wine person, a craft brew person, and a whiskey bourbon person, they all have the three different interests, right? And just because someone's into whiskey and bourbon and can tell all the difference and all that kind of stuff doesn't mean they're going to be into wine, right? And that's the same way of like hip hop and metal, right? Like, yeah, we might not get it in the same way. However, the wine person can understand what it's like for the whiskey person, because it's the same feeling, right? It's the same connection. And so it's the same here. So while the genre may be different, what we can get out of it is similar, right? In that sense, we're connecting to it in ways for whatever reason.
So we all really just want to get pissed drunk, is what you're saying. Got it.
Exactly. And listen to metal and hip hop and salsa.
On music. Piss drunk on music.
Oh, that's the new name for the
New name.
podcast.
There we go.
Look at that.
Sloshed.
Piss drunk on music. I love it. Oh, it's like Drunk History. That show Drunk History where the people get drunk and tell the story.
Although if we had to get drunk to do this, I don't think it's going to go well.
We'll keep this, and then maybe that'll be like an offshoot thing, a little side project we try. A special edition for the subscribers. There you go.
You get to watch us interview Hammered.
You get to watch us drunk.
God.
You set up a Patreon page for that.
Yeah. Buy me a whiskey and then watch me drunk. Oh boy.
We'll do all the questions in reverse.
Yes. What are we talking about? Yeah, totally. Well, Carolina, those are our 6 songs. And so, thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving us a window into your life and the way music has played a part in that. I think you've given us a good example of how conversations around music can really bring people together if we focus on the shared experience behind it and don't get caught up on the genre and everything else. And so, yeah. Real quick though, a little rapid fire. First concert, best concert, last concert. Or no, first, last, and then best.
Yet.
I'm not familiar with that band. I'm sure it's out there though.
It's more of a genre, Dave.
Yeah.
It's not a band, it's a genre.
I feel like my first concert was Madonna at the Orange Bowl. Yeah. And the reason why
you had an interesting experience
the
right?
reason why I'm claustrophobic. The Orange Bowl, it was a big stadium down in South Florida. It's no longer there. They've torn it down, but concert lets out and people start to leave and they forgot to open the gates. And so, there was like a, almost crushing situation. Like I have that memory of like, I remember looking up at my mom. We went with my mom and her best friend at the time and telling her like, I can't breathe. Like I felt like I was getting crushed. And my mom's friend, who was like just this badass foul mouth from New York kind of thing, was like, fuck this. And she starts to climb the fence to get us out because it was bad. And so then I climbed, they helped me climb the fence to get out. And then my mom goes to climb the fence to get out. And I want to say she ripped her pants at the top of the fence. Just so my mom. But yeah, so first concert, Madonna. Yeah.
So I'm guessing that wasn't the best concert.
Oh shit, I cannot remember what I put. Oh yes, I do. Best concert. We went to go see Walk the Moon in DC at the Anthem, right? Is that what you
Yep.
And they are just, it was such a good time. I had a broken foot at that concert, so I couldn't dance. But their music is just a blast. Like it was just so much fun watching them. And then last concert,
Wait, sorry. What what genre is it? I've actually never heard of Walk the Moon.
What'd you call them? Indie alternative pop?
Like
it's like the kind of Killers like but more poppy. No,
nothing
no,
at all.
Okay.
No, it doesn't have that kind of
No.
It doesn't have that kind of emo-y kind of darker feel. It's almost the complete opposite. It's music. It's party and happy and it's
awesome.
It's fun. Yeah, I had a great time at it too. It was just a blast.
Yeah. I would totally see them again.
I'll have to check them out.
And they just finished playing at Summerfest and then literally yesterday announced they're taking a hiatus from touring and just creating for a while. I think they've been touring like nonstop for several years now. So
been walking the moon too much. Now we got to sit down. We got to sit down on the moon for a little bit.
Yeah. So that was my best concert. And I think just the anthem.
Enjoy gravity, right?
Yeah. The Anthem in DC was like just such a fun venue to watch a show in. It's like really intimate and small. It's not this like huge stadium situation. I could see like they were so close. We were in one of the little balconies off to the side. Because of the claustrophobia from Madonna, I don't do floor or standing room only anymore, ever, because I get freaked out.
Going back to that Madonna incident, I was I was transported back to Latin America, and I was thinking of like, like those soccer stadiums, and they're just packed with people. And then on occasion, they've had some issues too. Like there's been a couple that like the stands collapse, and then there's other issues. Thinking of chaos and then Latin American soccer.
I mean, the memory is so ingrained. Like I could have died. I could have suffocated right in the moment. I felt being because I was small. I was a kid. So like the adults over you, like I just felt myself getting compressed. That I don't do standing room like seats at concerts. And when a concert ends, I wait at my seat until most people leave before I leave. I won't be one of the first people out the door. Like I want all doors open, and I want the crowd to be gone. And I look for exits. I look for crowd control type situations. Like it's always in my mind because of that. And I was young when that happened.
Wow.
And what was the last one? Last concert?
Yes.
I took Bella's our daughter. I took Bella to see Lizzo here in Nashville. And damn it, did she put on a phenomenal show. Just a phenomenal show. She's amazing.
Nice. Yeah.
Is she does she do she's like classically trained in flute?
Yeah, 100%.
She's a band nerd.
She is a band nerd. She talks about she
her documentary was really good.
Her documentary was
for
really
anyone
good.
Listening, check it out. For any band nerds out there.
She's
Definitely.
super like inclusive and talks about just inclusivity in music and stuff like that. And like that non-judgmental piece that like we're specifically talking about with this podcast. She just put out something on Instagram recently or something about how she doesn't understand why everybody gives Nickelback so much shit. She's like, I love them. And she starts talking about like the time and signatures and like all that stuff. She did an episode of the Hot Ones, the chicken wing show. And they were totally nerding out on like music theory and stuff like that. She is a very accomplished trained musician.
Yeah, she went I saw a clip of her, I guess it was in Germany, and she starts doing Rammstein in Germany to the audience, and they're totally caught on to it. It's like,
that's amazing.
Hey y'all,
that's amazing.
Du hast,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, and I really like how you brought that together, Carolina, for like the connections to the ideas behind this podcast, because I think she represents a lot of what we're getting at, right? Of it's not about one specific genre or not. It's,
or what,
cool.
anybody's preconceived notions are of what a successful or good artist looks like or sounds like. So her shows are huge on just like self-confidence and body positivity. And so to look around, I took our daughter, but to look around and see all of these like adults and kids just like screaming at the top of their lungs, just like resonating with her message was really cool. And her music's like kick-ass, and the show was amazing, and like all the things.
Nice.
Totally. I foresee a plan coming forward with this podcast. As we talk, we keep mentioning names of John Leguizamo and other people, and I'm like, feel like we're like planting these little seeds of like, maybe the word gets out, and then they become future guests.
Put it out in the universe, man.
That's right.
The universe does funny things.
Yeah, manifesting.
You just ask him, like, John Leguizamo, can you please come on?
Yeah.
Done. It's out there.
Huge fan.
It's out there.
Huge fan. It's out there. Yeah. Tag him in the post. All right. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. And so, in the minute or, little bit we have left, Carolina, anything you've got going on in your world, anything that people might be interested in, if someone wants to connect with you and talk shop on anything, what do you got going on?
I got my day job. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. So I joke that I teach people to be kind to each other, not to be douchebags to each other in the workplace. And so that's what I do. That's my 9 to 5. But also I co-host this podcast. And so I got that going on, and I want that to do really well. And I super want to hear other people's stories. Like, my goal with this is for folks to think about that person that they want to hear what their 6 songs are. Because I want to ask them and I want to talk to them. So I got that going on. You can reach me at A Life in 6 Songs podcast. So
Great.
Nice. Hey,
Raza, anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we should name drop our socials and let people know how to get in touch with the podcast. You know,
That's right.
I think we're on Insta, we're on Facebook. So
We are.
Share with us, Dave.
Yeah. Let me hit it up. I don't have it,
and we should put
ready
the links.
To go yet.
Well, we should put the links up.
They will be in, when this gets
right
posted.
Here.
Right
here
here
and right there.
Right there.
You can subscribe right there. Yeah. Hit that bell right there.
We'll get better at this. So A Life in 6 Songs podcast. Search it. We're got Instagram page, Facebook page, TikTok. I think we have a Threads. I think I set that up. If not, I will. Not sure how we'll use that yet, but hey,
not to unravel things.
That's right.
And anywhere you get your podcasts.
Yep. On all podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those, the video podcast, we've got a YouTube channel where we'll be posting the actual videos. So if you would rather see us as you listen to us rather than just listen to us, you can do that. Although we will not be offended if you just want to listen. On your commutes and your car ride and everything. So check us out. Subscribe and follow, and join us on this ride to see where this goes and hear some stories, and let us know who you want to hear from. Who do you want to see us talk to? Whose story do you want to hear in 6 songs?